Here we go. Chosen as our nation's 12th presidential pilot, Colonel Mark W. Tillman served as pilot and commander of Air Force One from 2001 to 2009. Think about those years for a second. Colonel Tillman was at controls of Air Force One through numerous national events. Most notably, he protected the president on September 11, 2001 by keeping him out of harm's way and connecting the Flying Oval Office to the nation's first responders. Check out this video.
It is the most celebrated aircraft on Earth. Its mission, to transport and protect the President of the United States. Journey now, as never before, into the stories of America's flagship. Fly through the terror-filled skies of September 11th.
That there was an aircraft coming at us. Its transponder was not on.
Apparently, we've lost radio contact with them. Are you aware of them?
Touch down on the dangerous runways of war-torn Baghdad.
It was a very dramatic moment.
And lift off on the first official flight with America's next president. On board the matchless aircraft called Air Force One.
It's gone up at 42,000.
The Flying White House is on a mission. More than a vehicle, this fortified Air Force jumbo jet is the President's Airborne Global Command Center.
And Cactus, Roger, Air Force One, we're losing you, go ahead.
And I've got 2-8, so we verify.
To step on board this aircraft requires top-level White House or Defense Department clearance.
The traffic will be descending.
No photos, no video is allowed without official authorization. From on board this specialized Boeing 747, the President and his staff can govern the country or coordinate military action, flying 40,000 feet above the Earth.
The President's mode of travel is Air Force One. Wherever he needs to go, we have to take the aircraft in there. So if it's a combat zone, or if it's a small runway, or if it's a small country that has minimal support, we have to get the support in there to go ahead and support his visit.
To project the power of the President around the globe, this is the mission of Air Force One.
All right, NBSRA, to your feet. Will you stand with me? Everybody stand with me and give a round, warm NBSRA welcome to Colonel Mark Tillman.
Thank you. Please sit down. This isn't church. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm truly honored to be here. This has been a lot of fun. And I used to work at Amway just down the street. I spent 3 years out here in Grand Rapids and loved it. Didn't like the rain and the snow and the wind and all that kind of stuff, but that's just what it was about. I spent 30 years in the United States military. I started out as a C-130 pilot, C-130 cargo plane, basically a 4-engine turboprop designed to go to war. It's you carry paratroopers, cargo, et cetera. You land on unimproved airstrips, et cetera. But when I came out of pilot training, I had an ego that could kill. I was amazing. I told myself, hey, I got the shiny boots, I got a flight suit, I even had hair. I was looking good. You know, the ladies loved me in my mind. I traveled all over the world in the C-130, went to different countries, and I was a drinker, I gotta admit. There was nothing I couldn't do. I could drink anybody under the table. I thought those were the things that were important to me. So after about 6 months, I was amazing in my mind. I was highly experienced, et cetera. And then they moved me on to instead of flying cargo, they put me into a special ops arena. So the C-130, we'd pick up SEAL teams and Delta Force, et cetera, et cetera. That's what it was about. My first mission as a co-pilot, 2 a.m., I get alerted. I'm told to head to the base as quick as possible. I go to the base. When I go in, they start briefing everybody. 5 other members on the crew, we're all sitting around. They tell us the following information. Folks, this mission is top secret. Once again, you're going on this mission, the government will disavow all knowledge of what you're doing. Here's the safe zones. If you are taken prisoner, you got 24 hours to survive. The government's not going to come after you. You got to get out of there because they're killing people. This was back in the Ollie North days. This was Central America. So I thought, that's no big deal. You know, that sounds pretty cool. Next situation, they say we're going to go to this location in Florida. We're going to pick up a SEAL team. We're going to pick up boats. We're going to pick up some materials with them. We're going to take them down to Central America. Not a problem. We take off as we're heading towards the location. All of a sudden, an airfield comes alive. It's an uncontrolled airfield. The only people there are the special ops guys. We land, they load us up. We take off, we start heading towards Central America. As we're heading there, a Marine major comes up in the cockpit and he's talking to us about the situation. He says, hey, when you land at this airport, sitting at the base of the ocean, you're going to come in low level over the water, you're going to land, but we need you to turn, cock the plane about 130 degrees off because you're the protection to get the SEAL team off the back. By the way, there's probably going to be ground fire as we're coming in, and we're going to need you to do exactly what we're told to do to get those SEALs out of there safely. Not a problem, sir, I'm on it. He tells me as a co-pilot, my job is to control the 1 o'clock position. Brand new, first mission as a special ops guy. Told me to open the swing window and lay down firepower if for some reason we start getting attacked. Now I had a .38, a small handgun, and I had 2 M16s with plenty of ammunition. As the situation goes, we go in, we come across the water, we land at the airfield, we come in, everything's good, there's nothing going on. We park, SEAL teams are moving everything off the plane. About 30 minutes prior to takeoff, all of a sudden, ground fire. We're hearing all kinds of fire. I'm looking out the window, and I don't see anything but palm trees out in front of me. But all of a sudden, I see the Marine major coming by the side of the plane. He's yelling at me, and he's telling me to fire, fire, fire. So I'm like, okay. I swing my swing window open. I got the M16, and I must have killed 40 to 50 palm trees that night. It was incredible. That's all I could see, but I'm blowing things up or whatever. It's time to leave now. Close my window. We start to turn. We head out over the ocean. As we're heading out over the ocean, the rest of the story is our job was to protect those SEALs. So the SEALs now have done their job. They ended up mining a harbor down there in Central America. We're watching them. We're loitering off to the side. And we're watching these guys, and our job now was to keep them safe. So if for some reason they came under attack, the plan was we'd pick them up at an airfield just down the coast. If everything went well, they were getting home some other way. We didn't know what it was. We weren't briefed in on that. So as we're sitting out there, all of a sudden the SEAL team's done with what they're doing, and they start heading out to sea. I mean, literally in 2 Zodiac boats going out into the main part of the ocean. We were like, maybe they were calm out or something and they're waiting for us, you know? So we start to follow them a little bit. As we're following, all of a sudden we see out in front of us, they're about 2 miles offshore, all of a sudden a submarine poosh, comes out of the water, boom, hits the SEAL team up to the side of the sub, gets into the sub, gone. That was my introduction to special ops. But what happened on the way home was more important to me. It changed my life forever, made me forge ahead, as they say, all right? I'm telling you, the major in the Marine Corps, he was constantly hitting me in the back of the head all the way home. Lieutenant, you had one job to do. Your job was to go ahead and provide firepower to the 1 o'clock position. You failed me. You're a failure, Lieutenant. And then he would leave. He'd come back about 20 minutes later. Lieutenant, you're a failure. You know, I was like, oh, good God, man, Major. And then finally he started talking to me what it means to be part of a team, an elite team, SEAL teams, what it means to be part of the United States Air Force. From that moment forward, my whole life changed. I made sure that I was going to be the best of the best from that point on. I made sure I'd have 0 failure in my life, that there'd be no failure. But the other thing the Marine major said, if you fail, you got to admit that you failed. You got to be accountable. So he said, you got something to tell me, Lieutenant? Yes, sir. I'm extremely sorry. He goes, I'm not asking for sorry because I know you're sorry, but you failed me. So what are you going to do about it? I'll never fail you again, Major. Copy that. That's what it's about. Now leads me to my story about Air Force One. I became the best of the best. After that, I applied to flying VIPs, started with senators and congressmen, and within a year, I was accepted by Air Force One. I became an Air Force One pilot. Only 8 pilots, so it was truly an honor. I spent almost 18 years at Air Force One. The plane you see right here is the plane we flew, a 747-200. Now, my job at Air Force One was a simple one. Safely transport the President of the United States to any location in the world. I was lucky enough to fly for President H.W. Bush, all 8 years of President Clinton, and then truly honored to be the nation's 12th presidential pilot in history, assigned to President George W. Bush and commanding Air Force One. Simple mission. Safely transport them, but we had to do it with zero failure. What you see on the board up here on the picture right now is Entebbe. It's in Uganda. Sits at a base of a lake. Now, everything has happened at Entebbe. There's been numerous incidents. Same thing happened to us. Plan was the president was going to go to Africa. We were going to visit multiple countries within Africa and stay in South Africa. Now, the plan was we'd hit to Entebbe. He'd spend about 6 hours. 2 weeks before we went in there, the host country let us know that there were fishermen on that lake that had been given man-pads, heat-seeking missiles. Literally, all they do is ride out in their boat like a Sunday afternoon boat ride, see Air Force One come by, and boom, 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 fire for effect. Now, the beauty of these missiles is they're heat-seeking missiles. So the plan of attack for Air Force One, when I went in there, the plan was to have the sun high, the plane right here, and the shooters down low. The missile is very smart. It is not going to release because if it sees the sun as the highest heat source. It's going to know, oh, he's pointing at the sun. I'm not going to waste a missile on it, so they won't release it. That was our plan of attack. But I wanted to make sure that the history books didn't show Tillman did everything but. So I brought in these guys. Brought in a SEAL team, dropped them in 2 days prior, Zodiac boats, 50 cals. They went ahead and dropped them into the lake. 12 hours after they'd been there, I'm in South Africa. I get a call by SEAL team lead, Colonel, lake is secure. Guys, you've been there less than 12 hours. How's the lake secure? Not your issue, Colonel. That lake is secure. Hey, that's all you need to hear from a SEAL team is lake is secure. Now, the plan of attack going in was, like I said, I'm going to keep the sun high, plane, shooter down low. Game day, luck at Tillman, completely overcast. Couldn't use the sun. It was about a 1,000-foot ceiling. SEAL team's always got an answer, and their answer always involves heavy firepower. Their plan of attack was I had to be down anywhere from 100 to 200 feet above the water. They'd fan out on either side. I would slow down, and they would protect us against anybody coming off that shore. I do it, game day. Here's the runway. I come in on a left base. I'm down low at 200 feet. Once again, ego gets involved when you're down that low. I'm a strong believer in at 200 feet, if you can get an amazing picture kind of thing, you can get an incredibly great picture down at 100 feet, all right? So I'm jockeying up and down. SEAL team's off to the right side. All of a sudden, SEAL team announces fishermen coming off the shore. We can see in the distance, boats starting to come off. SEAL team engages. All of a sudden, they start engaging the fishermen. They're lobbing all this stuff at them. They're firing rockets at them. They're doing all kinds of stuff. As we're looking off to the side, the fishermen come out. They go back to the shore. All of a sudden, we hear over the secure radios, Air Force One, cleared in hot. Bad day to go fishing. That's what your United States military does for you. That's what the SEAL teams do for you, all right? We constantly use them day after day after day. Now, I've been in my vantage point up in the cockpit of Air Force One, 30 feet up in the air. I've seen kings and queens come to the side of the aircraft, but the most memorable event occurred back in 2004 during the re-election of President Bush. As I'm coming into land, I got to listen to 5 different radios. I got to listen to the air traffic controllers. I got to listen to the 747 overhead. We always have a backup aircraft to protect the president. I also had to listen to the Secret Service radios, the staff radios, and my own crew. So as I'm coming to land in this location, Cedar Rapids, as I'm coming into land, all of a sudden over the radios I hear the staff on board the aircraft talk to the guy on the left side of your picture here with his hands behind his back. They say to him, let POTUS, President of the United States, let POTUS know that the young Marine has lost both legs and limited use of his right hand. Not a problem. As I'm taxiing in, I see the young Marine at attention in his wheelchair, saluting with his left hand. As I stop the aircraft, the president comes bombing down on those stairs. And as he gets to the ground, the staffer walks up to the president. I see 2 of them talking for like 4 seconds. Then President Bush just kind of pushes him off to the side. The young staffer goes to the front of the jet and talks in his wrist radio. The president says he knows how to greet a man, back off. President Bush then salutes the young Marine. He drops to his knees, hugs the young Marine. Then he points to the cockpit. That's my signal to make sure this young man's in the president's quarters when he returns. What you don't know, because it's not a media event, is families of the fallen, the Gold Star families. The president's in town, he's going to meet with these families, and it's our job to go ahead and take care of them while the president's gone. I can't imagine what it'd be like to lose my son. He's a Navy fighter pilot, or my daughter's, whatever, but that's what happens in America. We take care of our own. Now, the young man in the picture here, his name is Andrew Kennard. He's a Naval Academy graduate, had the opportunity to go to pilot training for the Navy, but he chose to be a Marine. He chose to be a ground pounder and infantryman. 6 months in Iraq, he'd only been in the military 6 months, an IED explodes in front of him. His life changes completely, severely injured. But he met with President Bush. On the way home, President Bush came to the cockpit, and the president is always talking with us about everything that occurred during the day. And he looks at me and he says, hey, you've heard the statement, once a Marine, always a Marine. It's true. The young Marine we met today that's out there, he told me, hey, I'm injured. I'm not going to let it define my life. The Marines are going to keep me. I'm going to go ahead and find another job. So the president said, hey, when you hear it from the Marines, that's exactly what it is. Now, at this point, I always do the same thing. I want to thank all the veterans in the audience, all the active duty, your families, first responders, their families. I want to thank you for your service to this great country. I am so proud of everything you've accomplished, and I salute you for a job well done. Thank you very much on that. September 10th, 2001, education visit to the state of Florida. Now, we had no idea what was going to happen on September 11th. A lot of media say that we had to have known about it. We did not. So on September 10th, we go ahead and we head to Jacksonville. The president gets out, meets with the local school teachers. You may remember back in those days, it was no child left behind was the mantra for education. As soon as the president meets with Jacksonville teachers, we then reposition the jet over to Sarasota, Florida. Now, the plane right now sits at its highest state of readiness. Now, a lot of you are going to start laughing when I tell you this. The plane is also at its highest state of security. It's got road cones 60 feet around it, all right? But it's what you put in those road cones that makes it completely secure. Inside those road cones, my top cop on the left side of the picture here is Will Chandler. President Bush used to call him Big Will. We keep things simple in the Air Force. President Bush always Big Will, Big Will. He's always tapping him, hitting him on the butt, rubbing his head, smacking him in the back. President called the guy on the other side of him, that's David Jefferson. What do you think his go-by name is? Bigger Dave. He's just a little bit bigger, as President Bush would say. So we had Big Will and Bigger Dave. Every time the president come down the stairs, he would talk with Big Will, try to make him laugh, do anything. Will said, hey, there's no way I'm going to laugh. I'm too professional for that. But Big Will had 4 lines of defense when inside those cones. If you're coming up to those cones and you're going to do harm with us, Big Will's walking towards you immediately. He's taking off his collar. He's unbuttoning his collar. He takes off his clip-on tie. Reason being, as Will says, when I'm beating you to death, I don't want you to accidentally use my tie and choke me, so I use a clip-on tie. So as Will's walking towards you, clip-on tie's off, collar's open. He's got a scar from his ear all the way across his neck. The only thing everybody's thinking is he's coming at you, big man coming at me. But the guy's been in a knife fight. He's won the knife fight because he's right here in front of me. So maybe I ought to listen to what he's doing. Step 1. Step 2, he will beat you to death. Step 3, he's got a 9mm on his side. The 4th thing, he just talks in his wrist. And in the picture here, there's a staircase right there. There's a guy that just sits there. He's got an M4, AR-15 type weapon. He comes down and all he has to do is shoot 60 feet. Big Will yells out down. The crew goes down. Guess what? Those left standing might be susceptible to open fire, all right? It's a simple process at Air Force One. So if you're at an airport and you're sneaking up on Air Force One and you see the road cones and all that, just remember what Tillman's little lesson was. Stay this side of the road cones, all right? September 11th, I walk across those road cones. I'm going from the nose of the aircraft to the tail of the aircraft. I did the same thing every time I went up board the plane. Talk with the flight attendants, let them know what's going on, and then they tell me what's going on in their lives. And I'm basically thanking them for doing an amazing job in each room of the aircraft. September 11th, I no sooner get into the president's quarters, it's now 8:46 in the morning. To back up a little bit, let me remind a lot of you what occurred. So the aircraft that were on the East Coast that got hijacked, 2 aircraft, 767s, got hijacked from Boston Logan Airport. American 11 as well as United 175. They both took off around 8 o'clock, 8:15. They left Boston. Their destination was going to be Los Angeles. Their targets were the North and South Tower. That's the plan for the 2 planes out of Boston. There were a crew of 7 to 9 on each plane with 5 hijackers and passenger load about 50 passengers. To the south, at Dulles Airport, American Flight 77, a 757, destination is Los Angeles. It had 5 crew, 5 hijackers, and about 30 passengers. It took off from Dulles. Its target was, the plan was, they assumed was going to be Washington, D.C., either the White House or the Capitol. It chose the Pentagon at the last second and crashed into the Pentagon. United Flight 93, it took off late from Newark Airport, 8:42 in the morning. It ended up heading out to the west. That was the aircraft that was basically out over the Ohio Valley, trying to figure out exactly what it's going to do, and then it's made its run in on Washington, D.C. Target unknown, because basically the passengers aboard the aircraft forced the pilots as such to go ahead and crash land the aircraft. I'll talk to you about that in a second. Now on September 11th, as I'm going through the plane, PA system comes alive, the radio operators, Colonel Tillman, pick up a white phone. Every position on the aircraft, every chair has a white phone and a beige phone. The white phone's normal communication. Beige phone's classified communication. I pick up a white phone. Radio operators, sir, you got to come upstairs immediately. I go upstairs. I'm looking on the Today Show. Air Force One did not have satellite television at this time. We had little tuners, antennas above and below the aircraft. We pick up local news stations. So we had ABC, NBC, and CBS. So at this point, we're watching NBC, the Today Show. What they're saying is basically operator error. An aircraft, a light aircraft, took off from JFK, it said, and crashed into one of the towers. Now, if you look at the picture now, in hindsight, maybe you'll say it, but as a pilot, when you look at the footprint of, that's not a light aircraft, that's a large aircraft. So all of us on the plane, all the other pilots were saying, you know, something's not right here. I tell the crew, the plan is, we're going to New York. There's obviously been loss of life. We'll go to New York either this afternoon or tomorrow, start to plan the trip. I then go downstairs. As I go downstairs, the radio operators are working their magic with our command and control. The command and control we have, NSA, CIA, Secret Service, they all said the same thing. It's been confirmed. It is actually a light aircraft operator error. President Bush is going to an elementary school. He's going to talk with the students and read to the students. As he walks into school, he's told the same thing. Light aircraft hit one of the towers in New York City, loss of life, and they're starting to plan a trip in the following 2 to 3 days is what they said. As I go downstairs, the first plane has hit the first tower, 8:46 in the morning. 9:03, United 175 crashes into the South Tower. At 9:03, as I'm downstairs over the PA system, the radio operators, Colonel Tillman, pick up a beige phone. Beige phone, classified information, it's a signal to the crew that something real world is going on. The crew gives numerous tours of the aircraft. They know if they hear that signal to pick up a beige phone for the boss, time to get everybody off the aircraft because something real world is happening. I pick up the beige phone, radio operators. They're telling me to come upstairs immediately. They're saying that we're executing plan such and such. It's the relocation of the President of the United States. Never been done before, highly classified. The goal of the plan is to relocate the President, the Vice President, Speaker of the House. It's for the continuity of government. That's our job, to make sure the government continues. My job at that time is to make sure the President survives, take him to a secure location. I go running upstairs. They show me the second plane hitting the second tower. I have all the codes. I go ahead and go with the radio operators. We're going through the codes to find the location we're going to take them to. We are set. We are ready to go. We are ready to relocate. The President, he's in the elementary school. Andy Card, his chief of staff, leans over to him, lets him know the country is under attack. The President continues talking with the students. In the room next to him, everybody is there that he needs. In the picture here, he's got his communication director. You may recognize Karl Rove. He's got the head of the Secret Service. He's got the head, basically the doctor. Now, the woman behind the President is key. She's the national security representative. She has on her phone, she has the ability in her little bag of tricks, she can, if the President says, I want to launch all the sub-launch ballistic missiles at such and such, she goes ahead, Mr. President, I need you to authenticate such and such. And bam, the two of them together, they launch. And that's what her capability is. So that's what she's working to see exactly what was going on September 11th. Now the President leaves the room with the students. He goes into the room as you see in the picture here. He's talking with the Vice President. Vice President Cheney lets him know that they're going to hunker him down. They're going to take him to a secure location. President Bush would have nothing of that. True Texan. He's not going to hunker down and hide. He's going back to Washington, D.C. So at this point, I'm given countermanding orders by the President of the United States, the only guy that can do it. Lets us know that, no, we're going back to Washington, D.C., and we need to get there as quick as possible. Well, orders change. That's what it's about. Now, at this point, all the agencies come together, CIA, NSA, the Secret Service. Everybody is coming together, giving us a situation report. They say that 9 aircraft have been hijacked. Why 9? 9 aircraft have had their transponders off or they're broken and they're not talking to the controllers, the same as the hijacked aircraft. Now, as we're talking to them, the FAA says, Air Force One, are you on the link? Yes, we are. Air Force One, there's an aircraft 130 to the northeast of you descending into Tampa, St. Pete area. Transponders off, it's not talking to anybody. We assume you and the president are the target. At this point, we start making changes. I need to start moving and getting out of there so I have a viable option for the president. I call in the backup aircraft. Backup aircraft's coming in on final while I'm starting to get ready to take off. As I let the Secret Service know that, Service says negative. Hold your position. We're actually leaving the elementary school. We'll be there in 8 minutes. I mean, they're coming at us fast. So at this point now, the plane coming at us, the president's coming at us. Now, as the president's coming to us, the Pentagon is hit. The Pentagon is hit now by the airliner that took off from Dulles Airport. The Pentagon gets hit. Now, everybody, because they don't see any signs of aircraft damage, the fog of war comes into play. We're told it's a truck bomb that's hit the Pentagon. We're told multiple car bombs are going off in the capital area. None of it was true, but the airliner that hit the Pentagon, it took quite a while for them to decide whether it was an actual airliner. The FAA got involved and said, no, definitely was. It's a flight coming out of Dulles. Now, as the president's coming to us, I've got the plane ready to go. I can start all 4 engines at the same time. I've got 2 on the right side running. The stair truck's up against the side of the plane. As soon as the president hits the bottom stair of the stair truck, I start the engines on the left side. So by the time the president's ready to come on board, we are ready to move. We did just exactly that. As soon as the door shuts, I start taxiing. As I'm taxiing out, all of a sudden, coming up behind me, Secret Service comes up to the cockpit. Tillman, unidentified man at the end of the runway. He's got a long gun. Now that's significant. He's got a rifle of some kind, high power weapon. Taxiing by him, excellent chance he'll shoot into the side of the aircraft. I turn the 747 around on the taxiway, and our plan is to take off over the top of him. I do just that. Just as I'm entering the runway, the Secret Service gets to the end of the runway as well. They're going ahead and apprehending the man at the end of the runway. Sure enough, the guy at the end of the runway was a guy that showed up at the last second, and he pulled one of those old VHS movie cameras out of the back of his van, but he had it in a gun case with all his other equipment, and he pulled out of a gun case a movie camera. He had 2 kids with him. He was just going to film Air Force One as it was taking off. Secret Service went ahead and took control of the situation. They let us know it wasn't a threat. It was too late. I was already climbing super steep above the man. Wrong day to be filming out of a gun case is the way I see it, but that's okay. The man was kept safe. I then turn out over the Gulf of Mexico and start heading towards Washington, D.C. As I'm heading to Washington, D.C., everybody in the president's chain of command as such, Vice President, Dr. Rice, everyone's trying to explain to the president that he needs to turn away from Washington. There's just too much stuff going on in Washington, D.C. now. They need to make it safe before we can land, make it safe to come back to the White House. The president listens to all this, but he continues, gives me the orders, no, we're still heading to Washington. Now, all of a sudden, we get told that the plane that's basically over the Ohio Valley has made its turn now. The president yells up, he wants to know what's the story, how long before we're gonna get to Washington. We find the plane that's basically United Flight 93. We're gonna land 20 minutes after Flight 93 crashes into some area in Washington, D.C. At this point, the president advises, all right, we need to turn around and loiter until we know what's going on with that aircraft. The sickest feeling I've ever had in my life is the vice president asked the president for shoot-down authority of an airliner, United Flight 93. The president gave him shoot-down authority if the plane didn't follow the fighters. We're about to kill Americans to save Americans. Now, no sooner did he do that, less than 4 minutes later, FAA advises that the plane that was over the Ohio Valley now has gone down. It's no longer on radar. All of us are like, dang, we've killed our own people. The president asked, did we shoot it down? We couldn't get that information initially, but our radio operators talking to the fighter pilots, they ended up talking to the fighter pilots. The fighter pilots were moving into position as the plane came down. This is a picture of Shanksville. Now, as the plane crashed into the ground there, the fighters said that, hey, the plane was descending and the whole time. And it just crashed into the ground. The president asked, does it look like there's signs of life? The fighters came back and said negative. There's not even signs of the aircraft. If you haven't been to Shanksville, you need to go to Shanksville. It's an incredible site. I've been there 3 times now. It's just so amazing what the crew, what basically the passengers did. So now, if you want to know the true heroes of the day, in my mind, not only the first responders, but those aboard Flight 93 that tried to take control of the aircraft. They didn't breach the cockpit, but they forced the hijackers to go ahead and basically crash the airplane, save countless lives in Washington, D.C. No sooner is all this going on, the vice president lets the president know that it's just been called into the White House that Angel is the next target. Angel was the classified call sign of Air Force One. Crazy comment that we were given at this point. They've broken our codes is all I could think. All right, they've broken our codes. It's a big sky. I'm not worried about anybody crashing into me, but for some reason, someone's called in and saying we're the next target. I got to figure it out. I asked for fighter support. I wanted all our fighters to be moved in to protect us. I wanted an AWACS plane, a plane with radar overhead to look down and tell me what's coming up at me. So at this point now, everything's coming alive. It's all coming together. We no sooner now are ready to keep heading towards Washington. The president says no, he's going to turn away from Washington. We're going to stay in the Gulf of Mexico, Panhandle of Florida. I'm all set. I'm ready to make that happen. As I'm out in the Panhandle, wondering, all right, I'm going to need fighter support. Houston Center comes alive on the radios. Air Force One, you have fast movers at your 7 o'clock. How fast? They're supersonic. Their feet wet. They're low on the water. They're coming up at you. I go to the mill aide to the president, say, hey, Tom, it looks like we got the fighter support. He goes, negative. The Air Force said they can't provide it at this time. So who are these guys coming up on us? He goes, I don't know, but the Air Force says there's foreign nationals in the Gulf of Mexico with RF-16s, fully armed. They've been told to return to base, and they're staying out over the Gulf of Mexico, loitering. At that point, it hits us. Okay, maybe who these guys are. I start diving towards the Florida coast, asking for fighter support to come up and meet me. I'm doing 9.2 Mach, 0.9 times the speed of sound. I am trucking. The fighters are still gaining on me. All of a sudden, we get a radio call. Air Force One, this carry 45. We're a flight of 2 F-16s. We're your cover. Now, at this point, all of us in the cockpit are laughing our heads off because these are not foreign nationals. These are Texans, and we know that for a fact. We ask them, carry 45, where you at? Houston, Ellington. Couldn't have written history any better. They're out of the President's Guard unit in Houston. Their commander decided, hey, their Air Force One's flailing, they're not getting any support. He took his fighters off alert and told them to haul to us and come up on us. That's what this picture is. It's the F-16s from Ellington. They stayed with us the rest of the day. President makes a decision, he's got to address the American public. First stop, Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. We descend into Barksdale, the president gets out, he talks with the American public. Air Force One didn't have that communication capability at the time. It does now, but back then it just didn't have the ability for streaming video. So he basically had to work with the local media and address the American public. The funny part of this whole thing is we're at a base. I'm sitting there at the jet. The president's talking with the American public. The wing commander comes walking up to me, a general officer, gives me a big man hug. He goes, hey, Colonel, you're doing God's work. You know, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. But you got to know the smartest thing and the dumbest thing you've done today. Hey, General, I'm up for General as well. Let's stick with the smartest. What you got? Most secure base in the entire world. Yeah, sir, under your leadership, I wouldn't have expected anything less. Then he goes, the dumbest thing, though. We're doing a nuclear exercise. All the B-52s you're parked in between right now, they're hot. They're loaded with nukes. Wrong place to have brought the president if you're being attacked from the sky. Hey, General, that's our little secret, big fella. You know, hugging him, everything's good. We took the president off to Offutt Air Force Base, put him deep underground. Thought he'd be there 12 to 15 hours. You don't know a Texan. His plan was to be there 2 hours. After 2 hours, he'd had enough. Came running back to the aircraft, and that's what he did. He came back, brought him back to Washington, D.C. F-15s joined up on us over the Shenandoah Valley, heading into Washington. F-16s from Andrews Air Force Base joined up on us. And as we're heading into Washington, D.C., the F-16s from Andrews asked if they could come up on a tight wing. Now, if my hand is the fuselage and my thumb is the wing, a tight wing is you're still outside the wing. He joined up on a tight fuselage on this picture. He's inside the wing. I'm looking down at him, and the guy's giving me all these signals. You know, he's like going like this, and he's going. You know, I used to teach pilot training, so I'm going, I don't understand those signals. I wonder what's going on. The radio operators through the flight attendants say the president's downstairs. What he's doing is he's looking out the window at the fighter, and he's doing this stuff at him. He's, go get him, go get him, go get him. So they're waving at each other back and forth. Now, those fighters protected us all the way in. Pentagon smoldering as we came across. We land at Andrews Air Force Base. September 11th was on a Tuesday. On Friday, we took the president to Ground Zero. The president gets out at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey. Then he helicopters into the Wall Street landing zone. You may remember him on the rubble at Ground Zero. He's talking with the first responders. Now, as he's talking with the first responders, they're all yelling at him, "Go get him, George!" And then some guy yells out, "We can't hear you!" Got the video. It's going to come up loud, guys, so just watch this, what the president says.
I want you all to know that America today is on bended knee in prayer for the people whose lives were lost here, for the workers who work here, for the families who mourn. This nation stands with the good people of New York City and New Jersey and Connecticut as we mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens. I can hear you. I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
USA, USA. Remember those days? It didn't matter whether you watched CNN or Fox or you're a Democrat or Republican. We all came together and we all supported the United States of America. My son's a fighter pilot in the Navy, deployed all the time now. He's out in the Middle East right now. He's a Top Gun graduate, at F-18 pilot. I live my life through him now just because of all the things he's having to do. When he and I get together in Scottsdale or California, we have a home in Huntington Beach, California. I agree, fruits and nuts, and yeah, I'm not a resident of California, but it's still right next to the ocean. I love it a lot. But when my son gets there, we go to bars. When my son, and we just go have a drink or whatever now. When my son left my house, my son was an okay drinker. Navy's made him a professional drinker now, okay? So when we go to bars now in the middle of the night, he's not drunk or everything, but my son's a true American. He'll stand up on a chair in the bar, he'll stand up and start yelling, "USA, USA." Every time he does that, every person in there stands up and starts chanting, "USA, USA." I go ahead and get my credit card out as the retiree guy, and I buy drinks for everybody in the bar. So if you see me tonight here downtown and I stand up in "USA, USA," if you're a drinker, you know you're going to get something, all right? Now, that's what America was about during those times. The flag that came up on Ground Zero is significant. I got this picture on my desk, signed by President Bush. It says, "Never forget." The flag is extremely important to me. It's a sign of all those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. It's what America is about. Now, basically after September 11th, the World Series was going on. It was the Arizona Diamondbacks playing the New York Yankees. President Bush, his plan was to throw out the first pitch. Now, there were all kinds of banners all around Yankee Stadium. It says, "Nobody keeps America down, throw the ball." And it's basically all over the place. So the president's throwing out the first pitch. He has to throw it out, though, wearing a bulletproof vest, and he's throwing from the rubber. I mean, it's incredibly difficult, but I got the video. You'll like it.
Tonight's ceremonial first pitch. And please welcome the President of the United States.
USA, USA. I'm telling you, we got to get back to those days. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican. We got to come back to hugging and holding and taking care of each other. That's my little political pitch right now. So come on out to Fruits and Nuts, California. You can stay at my house out there or come to Arizona. This time of year, you're going to burn up with me on the back patio, but we'll take care of each other. Now, President Bush wanted to go to Afghanistan after the war started. We couldn't get him into Afghanistan. There were just no secure bases. And basically in September of 2003, there was discussion about taking the president to Baghdad for Thanksgiving dinner. That kind of went away. Then in October, about a month prior, I get called to the White House. I'm told that we're now going into Baghdad. It's going to top secret mission. The plan is only 10 of us are going to know about it. Dr. Rice, Andy Card, and then a guy named Joe Hagan briefed me in on what they want me to do. Come up with a plan. Bring basically the plane into Baghdad and then bring him back to Washington, D.C. President Bush then walks into the table as we're talking. He said, Tillman, it's a simple mission. We're going to leave the United States. We're going to have dinner in Baghdad. We're going to come back to the United States. You got it, Colonel? I got it, Mr. President, and I'm on it. I went ahead and I plotted all the basically mortar rounds or rocket-propelled grenades that hit the airport. There's only one place that wasn't hit, and that was in the right corner right here is a hammerhead. It had never been hit. Reason being, the Army protected that. Basically, it pushed everything out, so when the terrorists were shooting with mortars and that kind of stuff, they couldn't get close enough due to the range of the mortar to get that area. That's where I'm going to park a 747. Now, the challenge for me was, when I landed, I had enough gas to get to Kuwait. I needed 60,000 gallons of gas. It's a helicopter base. There wasn't 60,000 gallons of gas available to me. But on the top left, there was a group of people that would get gas every day. I found them on the satellite imagery, but I couldn't figure out exactly who they are. I went to Andy Card, the chief of staff. Andy said to me, hey, here's a number. Call this guy on the weekend, they'll hook you up. Sounds good. It was a 3-letter agency that I ended up talking to that ends in A. Can't tell you who they are, but ends in A, secret organization, okay? Now I call this number, it's a Virginia number on the Saturday. A guy named Jim's supposed to answer the phone. I call the number, all of a sudden a lady answers the phone. I said, hey, this is Colonel Tillman, I'm trying to get a hold of Jim. She goes, oh, Jim's out mowing the lawn. Just a minute. And I hear her yell, Jim, hey babe, phone's for you, honey. And I'm like, dang, I must have dialed the wrong number. I'm looking at it, no, I didn't dial the wrong number. All of a sudden I hear this bup, 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 and completely changes. Another guy answers the phone, Colonel, go secure. I go secure. Guy ends up telling me, hey, I'm in Baghdad. You know, I've got all the stuff that you need, but I need you to get briefed in by our crew in Washington, D.C. You're to go to Old Town, Virginia on Monday. You'll be on the corner basically of Main Street and a side street. Someone's gonna come up to you. They're gonna say to you, hey, let's go have some lunch. Your answer to them is, I'd like to go to McDonald's, all right? Got it. I go ahead in civilian clothes standing on a corner. As I'm standing there around 10 o'clock in the morning, a lady pulls up in a car. She pulls right up next to the corner where I'm at, rolls the window down. Hey babe, how you doing? Yeah, I'm doing great, thanks so much. She goes, hey, you wanna come with me for like 10 minutes? I'll give you the time of your life. It's like, you know, I'm thinking to myself, this never happens to me. What is this about, you know? And then she's laughing her head off. She goes, hey, I got the perfect spot just down the street right here. I go, no, I appreciate it. You know, I'm honored that you stopped for me, but no, I'm fine, thank you. So I'm standing there and everything, and then she's beep, 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 beep. She beeped my horn. I was like, yeah, what's up? She goes, come here a minute. And as I get closer to the car, she goes, Colonel, get in the car. And I was like, oh, you're the one, okay. I jump in the car. As I get in the car, she says to me, hey, want to go grab lunch? I said, yeah, I'd love to go get some McDonald's. She goes, no, I don't eat that crap. And then I go, oh no. And then she hits me right inside the head and she goes, Colonel, you're in the right car, let's get moving. I went to a place that just opened up in the middle of nowhere. They briefed me in on the entire operation. We go to Baghdad. President is going here. These guys, 2 weeks prior to going in for Thanksgiving, they shot down a plane. The terrorists there blew up with a man-pad, a DHL plane. It crashed in the Baghdad airport. The president now is coming to us. We're using 2 747s. The president leaves the Waco where he's at in Crawford. He jumps in one plane in Waco. We take him to Andrews Air Force Base. He comes in on the plane on the left. He transitions to the plane on the right, full of gas. We start heading to Baghdad. President's in the cockpit as I'm coming in. It's just about darkness right now when this picture's taken. As we're starting to descend, President Bush is doing the Roundhouse, Texas thing. Hit me in the back of the head. Hey, what's it like bringing Commander-in-Chief in a war zone? It hadn't been done before. but I was ready to make it happen. So as I'm descending in, it's darkness now. Taking a 747, completely blacked out, let it land on a runway that's completely blacked out. Navigator behind me talking, it goes, on target, you're on target, you're on target. Came in, landed, ego's involved now. It was a wonderful landing. It was incredible, all right? President gets out, he goes to the center of the airfield, he starts talking with the troops. He serves the troops. When he comes back to the aircraft, he's ready to go. Multiple issues going on at this point. There's firepower, rockets, and all that kind of stuff going on, but we're gonna go ahead and sneak out of there. We end up going out. As we get airborne, the President asked me to come down to the conference room. As I get in the conference room, big man hug, Tillman. You did a great job. We got a chance to have dinner with the troops. Everything was set. Now, I asked the President what was it like having dinner with the troops. He said, I didn't get a chance to feed them. I got a chance to serve them. I served the finest men and women of the United States of America. And what an incredible quote by the President. Now, the President gave me the Distinguished Flying Cross. It's one of the nation's highest medals for orchestrating and flying the mission. If I could cut it up into 300 pieces, I would, and give it to all the people that were involved, because your United States military did an amazing job. Now, on 4 other occasions, we brought the President into the war zone. On his last flight with us, we gave him the same window he looked out of on September 11th. What it says on it is the right man at the right time, with the Twin Towers actually on the window. It sits at the SMU College Library, the President's Library in Dallas, Texas. Now, one final story. This is what America's about. So on the final flight that we took with President Bush overseas so he could say goodbye to the troops, we went into Baghdad. We went into the Green Zone. The President's in there talking with the Iraqi leaders. Basically one of the news media from Iraq takes his shoe off and he throws it at President Bush. President Bush stands, moves out of the way, doesn't hit him. He then takes his other shoe off, and it's a sign of disrespect. But what happens is the Secret Service announces over their radios, hey, you know, the president's under attack. So all of us in the plane are running. I mean, I'm running upstairs, and the radio operators are yelling at me, boss, it's a shoe attack, it's a shoe attack. I turn around, and I look at the television, sure enough, it's a shoe attack. But it took away from the president's message, all right? The joke that we all had after that was, you know, CNN and Fox would do like they always do. They'll bring in shoe experts. Well, you know, that was a Nike 505 shoe that he threw a distance of, I mean, it's just that craziness. So it took away from the president's message. But here's the final thing. When we went to basically Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, we land, president meets with the troops. They put this enormous tarp around the 747 by the fire station. They tell us the president's going to meet with the Afghani leaders. So as we're sitting there, I can see from the cockpit looking straight down, there's all kinds of people arriving. They're coming in with the flowing robes and the turbans, et cetera. So it doesn't, I think it is the Afghani leaders. And they're all standing around. When President Bush opens the tarp and walks in to say goodbye to him, all of a sudden these guys start taking the flowing robes and turbans off. It's our special ops guys, it's Delta Force, it's SEAL Team 6. They're all coming to say goodbye to the boss. So before they can say hello to the boss, they de-arm. I mean, these guys are taking shotguns out, their hands and knives, and they walk across a de-arm line. Everybody, you know, they're, you know, boxing with the president. Biggest guy in the world, the end. He comes walking up and he steps across the line, and he holds his arms up, and then he stops and he pulls a sword out of the back of his thing and lays it down, and he walks across the line. And President Bush then goes to his knees and he starts frisking him. But when he gets to, even with the guy's chest, he goes, nails the guy. And the guy goes, whoa, takes a step back. And you see going through his head, he's like, I'm going to tear this man up. And he starts coming back like this. And then he gets the second thought, as President of the United States, I better, you know, kind of back off. So he lets his guard down. President Bush steps in and goes, boom, 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 hits the guy. And the guy literally, all he does is just go, boom. Hits the president, we're all like, get up, Mr. Oh my God, oh my God. And yeah, they stand up and they're hugging each other, they're hitting each other. That's what our United States military brings to the table. So in conclusion right here, I want to tell you, the United States of America is the best place in the world. And now when you all talk about forge ahead, moving forward, that's exactly what you need to do, all right? You got it perfect. Everybody in here, the difference between you and SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force and Air Force One is attitude, all right? You don't have to lift stones and rocks and lay in the water and do all that kind of stuff. When somebody wants high quality, somebody wants, you know, basically rent to own, et cetera, you guys are the experts. So you're like the SEAL Team 6 of the RTO, all right? And this man right here, I would give him a call all the time. In fact, I may start calling you just to get some legal advice. on what's going on in my world, because it's the best. You take care of each other, and that's what America's about. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for everything you're doing, and by all means, God bless America. And if you see me in the bars tonight and I'm yelling USA, join in on me, all right? USA, USA. Thanks so much. Have a great evening. Thank you. Well, let me give it a try. USA, 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 USA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colonel.